Hey friends, apparently the Google Hangout is now live, the YouTube thing, apparently I'm live now. That's great. So today we're going to be discussing a very fascinating topic, and I am sincerely hoping that I am live. So if I am live and someone is in the comment section, please do me a favor and let me know, because I genuinely don't know. But today we're going to be doing something that will hopefully be useful for both asexual compadres and also our allies who are interested in asexuality and who want to learn. Because honestly, asexuality is a confusing thing, not just for asexuals, but also for our allies, especially for our allies. And the main source that I'm going to be using, hopefully, Wonder Lady is here, because Wonder Lady agreed to be my sort of backup and to have the links going on in the comment section. Also, some new folks are moderators. Some folks will be added as moderators as things go on. I am going to make it a habit to make people who are going to be interviewed who have YouTube channels moderators. Not everyone who's going to be interviewed for my Asexuality O'Clock companion series that talks about like live streams and does interviews and stuff. Not all of those people are YouTubers. Some of them are just cool cats that I happen to know who happen to be Ace or Demi or Gray Ace. And one of the first things I wanted to talk about is just, hey, how's it going? I hope that everyone is having a great day so far. I'm super excited to be here. I talk a little bit about being nervous. Part of the reason I mention that is that usually when streams start, I start off a little bit nervous and then I get more relaxed as the stream goes on. This is something that people who have seen me do a handful of live streams probably already know because it's far from a secret. I talk about this. Wonder Lady's right. If you guys want to help me out in the most direct way and you happen to have the dollars that it would require being a patron / being a Patreon, I don't know what the right verbiage there is the most direct way to help me out, because it helps me, not starve. Finger guns. And today we're going to be talking about asexual language and asexual terminology. And this is a really important thing to talk about, because the language that asexuals who care about community building and who want to meet with other folks use is a little bit different than the language that some asexuals who are just like, hey, I'm asexual, that's that, use. And I think it's important that people know these sorts of language, because this language is actually language that applies to a wide range of folks. I'm going to be giving examples of this as I go through today's video. I'm hoping to keep today's video to an hour, maybe a little bit over, so I am going to dive on in a little bit. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you did get to see that I made a little whiteboard to help me out with today's stuff. Unfortunately, I am not smart and I didn't realize that it would look backwards. So I'm going to show you the whiteboard, because there's a lot of really cool stuff on the whiteboard. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to read it. And I thought that was going to be because of my handwriting, but it's not. It's because I have no idea what I'm doing. I thought that that'd be fun. So I will talk about what's on the whiteboard, because what's on the whiteboard is actually pretty cool. I made a little sexual spectrum, which starts off with Ace and then has Gray A and then Aloe. And that is a flawed whiteboard. That's a flawed spectrum. I'm just using that to illustrate a concept. I know it looks fine. The issue is that people can't read it. So if you have a Twitter and you follow me on Twitter, you can actually see it. Wait, can y'all read it? Oh, cool. That's neat. I didn't know that people would be able to read it. Oh, Jesus. I guess it's because I was looking at it through my camera. I didn't know how it would look to you all. Also, I don't have the YouTube live screen up like I usually do. What I have is the pop-out chat, which I learned how to do yesterday during Bemeasle Bub's Seven Princes show, which is a new weekly, not a new weekly, it's a new monthly series that our good friend Bub is going to be doing over on his channel at the end of every month. And it's just going to be some atheist folks talking about news and stuff. I was there. Bible About Atheists was there. Mrs. Snarky was there, and then Bub himself was there yesterday. And that's a super fun thing. I actually genuinely enjoyed that. But that was when I finally figured out how to use the pop-out chat. So the delay is fun because I did not realize y'all would be able to read it. So I'll pull it out again. That's a pleasant surprise. Honestly, I probably should have done a little bit of a practice run with someone before, but I feel like that loses some of the authenticity. Wait, no, this is a different pop-out chat. It's not the pop-out chat for Roll20. It's the pop-out chat for YouTube, which is not quite the same. And that was in response to Aided. I can see the comments, so I am going to be able to respond to them. But since people can read this, I'm not quite going to keep it up, but I will use it since people actually can. So the purpose of today's chat, and that is very loud in my ears. I'm glad I had my headphones in. The purpose of today's chat is to talk about asexual language and terminology. And in the little bottom corner there, you can see me very crudely write, I am demisexual biromantic. And I'm going to talk about what those terms mean right now, because a lot of people realize this. A lot of people realize this now, but when I was younger and when a lot of asexuals who are just now discovering that they're asexual were younger, we didn't know, or at the very least, a lot of us didn't have the vocabulary to realize that being romantically attracted to someone and being sexually attracted to someone are different things. And it's also worth noting that there are a range of other attractions. Triatal, whose name I always butcher, and I'm so sorry, wanted me to talk about sensual attraction, which I actually am going to talk about later on in this video. But as a demisexual, I am incapable of experiencing asexual attraction to someone unless I have a close emotional bond to them. And as a biromantic person, I am capable of experiencing romantic attraction to people of both genders. And I use that word, but I would probably be better to say that I am polyromantic, because I'm someone who, the way I experience romantic attraction is not dependent on someone's gender. And I don't know enough about the differences between terms like bi, pan, and poly to be able to distinguish which one of those would be better for me to use. So I use biromantic as just a sort of hopefully catch-all, although I now know, because of people like Mr. Atheist, I now know better, and I know that I should probably look into that more. Also, that's something I recommend everyone do. Everyone should know about these sorts of terms, because these terms apply to everyone. These terms aren't just useful for people like me and a lot of my friends in the chat who happen to be ace. I'm surprised at just how many ace folks there are in my chat and in my audience, and I deeply appreciate it, because when I first started making videos about asexuality, I was one of the only asexuals in my little corner of the internet. There was me, and there was Inordinate Refraction. And then there were folks like Objectively Subjective who identify as along those lines, who use terminology similar to that, who use labels like gray A, which is one of the terms I'm going to be talking about later on in this video. But I'm happy now that as I'm creating asexual content and content oriented towards asexual folks, that my audience is growing explosively, and lots of aces are joining my little community. That's something that makes me very happy. And also, Callan is not the only non-asexual here, but they are one of them. The people whose comments I'm seeing anyway, the majority of them are folks that I know to be asexual, and everyone that I can see in the comments is not straight. There's some variation of not straight. And I think that's pretty cool, because for a long time, atheism was sort of coded as this straight white guy thing. And now, even though I am a white guy, I am not straight. So that's neat. I am just sort of chatting right now. I think that it's nice to let some time go before I start to dive into the topics that I'm going to be talking about. Also, if you like what you're seeing, if you like the sort of content I create, and you want to help more folks see this chat, feel free to like and share. That does help the algorithm send this out to more channels. There were some folks last time who had never seen my content before and who came on because people were sharing the video. And you people came on last week, so that was really cool. Last week, for those of you who don't remember, or for those of you who are new, because I have since gained 10 subscribers, and I am officially at 400, but I know that as I say that, there are people who are going to unsubscribe. There are people who joked about unsubscribing, and I have a feeling there are some people who are going to unsubscribe just to be like, haha, you thought you were at 400. No more. But now I'm going to start to talk about the actual topic of today's video. And the actual topics of today's video are just different terms, different languages and different stuff. Not different languages, but different terminology. I'm going to go, and I'm just going to go down this in order. So attraction is a very important term if you are either an asexual person or you are an ally, or if you're dating an asexual person and you are what we call allo. If you are what we call allo, that is the term that asexuals use to talk about non-asexuals. That's a pretty simple term, pretty neat term. I know not all allosexuals are big fans of it, which kind of sucks, but it's just a term that asexuals use, and people who are not just asexuals, but also people who are in like our little sphere. So people who are gray A, people who are demi, people who are aromantic, or arrow as in aromantic. And I am going to be having a chat talking about aromanticism, but I am not aromantic, so I'm hoping that I can have a chat with someone who is aromantic, not necessarily someone who is like super in-depth in terms of their knowledge about aromanticism or anything, but just someone who identifies as that, because that's not a thing that I am, and I would like to learn more about it. And I think it's important that we platform people when we talk about their areas, and that we actually listen to them instead of just listening to people who are in communities adjacent to those communities but aren't quite in those communities. So the terms asexual and aromantic mean something similar, just for sexual and romantic orientations. And that's a obviously, that's not the greatest definition, but I don't want to try and define a term and then butcher it. If someone here would really like to give me a definition of aromantic, especially if they're on the aro spectrum, like Triatal is, I would be super down for that, because that's an important term that people need to know and understand. People often conflate asexuality and aromanticism, which is super problematic. And also, frustrated, I'm reading your comments, and that is not a stupid reason. I'm sorry that you're bummed out. I hope you know that if you need someone to talk to, you can send me a DM anytime. I'm here for you, pal. I know that if I lost one of my pets, or if my family lost one of our pets, we would be devastated. So it's okay to feel sad about that. That's not a stupid reason to feel sad. And I hope you know that this is a space that's going to recognize your pain. And that's the thing that we're going to do for anyone who needs it. Anyone who's in pain, anyone who needs someone to talk to, can feel free to send me a message. I'll always be here. And I have lots of pals who'd also always be here. So, but the next term, so I'm going to talk, my first term here is attraction. I'm now going to pull up my little note section on attraction. So give me just 1 second. So attraction is a fascinating term, and attraction is one of the big things that defines asexuals, because asexuals are people who do not experience sexual attraction, or people who experience very little sexual attraction. I am an asexual person in that second camp. I'm someone who can experience sexual attraction, but in my case, there have to be specific conditions in order for me to be able to do so. That's the reason why I'm demisexual. But there are some folks who are both demi and ace. There are some folks who are demi and aromantic, or on the aro spectrum. And I feel like a lot of people are on these spectrums. Demisexuals are actually, in my experience, fairly common. Once you explain what a demisexual is, most people are either going to say that that's just being choosy, or that that is what they are. And I have a feeling that because so many people would say that that's what they are, the reality is that being demisexual is a lot more normal than people realize, and it's something that should be a lot more accepted than it is. It's very unfortunate that demisexuals are often sort of minimized. I would know I'm a demi, and a good number of my friends are, especially people who actually pay attention to sex and sexuality. But what attraction in the context of being an asexual or aromantic person is it's a mental or emotional force that draws people together. And it's very important for people to know that this is a very wide-ranging term. There are going to be four big kinds of attractions that people can experience. There's going to be sexual attraction, there's going to be romantic attraction, there's going to be aesthetic attraction, and there's going to be sensual attraction. And those terms all mean different things. Understanding each of them is something important that I recommend everyone does. I think it's important for straight people. I think it's important for gay people. I think it's important for bisexual people, and for people who are somewhere along a gendered spectrum that is breaking the gender binary, as in you're not cisgendered. And sexual attraction is the thing that asexuals don't experience, but asexuals can experience every other kind of attraction, and asexuals can actually have a sex drive, because libido refers to something different than sexual attraction does, at the very least in the context of asexuality. And I understand that for a lot of people, it's difficult for them to think of asexuals as having a sex drive, but a sex drive is something that is different. Oh, hey, bub. I talked about your show earlier. If you want to put in, I'm going to make you a moderator if I can. And then, yeah, if I made you a moderator, if you want to link your show when everything's done, that would be cool. But yeah, so it's really important that people understand the differences between, boy, I hope that other people are not able to hear that notification in my ears like I can. Y'all probably can't, but YouTube is just popping off right now with notifications. I hope it's people super subscribing to me or becoming my Patreons or something, and not like me losing subscribers. But one of the big reasons why I want to talk about attraction and libido is so people can have a healthier understanding of asexuals, because asexuals are a very diverse bunch. Not all asexuals have a libido, but some asexuals do. I do. And a libido is basically a sex drive. And a sex drive is different from sexual attraction, because a sex drive can be undirected. You can experience a sex drive and you can want to do something like, say, masturbate or even have sex. But that doesn't make you not asexual. And it's really important that people understand that. That's part of the reason why it is that some ace folks date allo folks. I am an ace folk who is dating an allo folk. My partner is also queer. She's just a different kind of queer than I am. And it's important that people actually understand that these things are different. These are important terms that people deserve to know about. And honestly, if everyone knew about these terms, people would have a healthier understanding of sexuality, and we'd be able to have more nuanced conversations about sexuality. So sexual attraction is, and also I'm super glad that y'all are like super receptive to what I'm saying. And also, Yariv, I feel you. Spanish is my first language, even though I'm now better at English than I am at Spanish. So I have been there. But yeah. So what sexual attraction is it's the desire, it's emotional and a mental desire to have sex with someone else. And this is what asexuals don't experience, as we've talked about before. Romantic attraction is an emotional and mental desire to have a romantic relationship with other people. Romantic relationships can have sexual components, but they're absolutely celibate relationships, not just of ace people who are dating allo people, but there are allo people who have romantic relationships that are celibate, and those relationships deserve to be respected. The reasons why people have those sorts of relationships is varied, and all of that deserves to be respected. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to be a little bit edgy, since a lot of my folks are atheists, but if someone's reasons for having a celibate relationship are religious, it's perfectly valid. It's a choice they're making. We should respect it. And I think that most of us do respect that, because most of us here are humanists in addition to being atheists, and there's even a few theists among us. Callan's not the only person in this particular chat who is theist. They're the main one. I know that they're the one who's the most vocal, but there are other folks here who are theistic as well, and I think it's important we respect them, because I know lots of different folks have lots of different reasons for doing different things. And asexual, so I'm going to answer a question from Mark Caesar. I'm going to talk a little bit about the wording because the wording is unintentional, but it is kind of rough. The question is, can asexual people ever regain or attain a normal sexual attraction? I'm going to caution against the word normal, because one of the reasons why asexuality is so difficult to define is that asexuality is often talked about in cultured terms. As a Hispanic person, what I talk about when I talk about asexuality is a Hispanic sort of look at this. And Hispanic folks live, at the very least, those of us who live in similar cultures, because Hispanic cultures run a very diverse gambit. But those of us who live in, let's say, European descended Hispanic cultures, Hispanic or European dominated Hispanic cultures, we have very intense sexual societies, but being a sexual being is often looked down upon because of the religion that we, are from, and the religion that many of us grew up in, even if it's not necessarily the religion that we were dominated in. As an asexual person, as a demisexual person, my specific case, I would say it's probably a little bit easier for me to have, I guess, a normal level of sexual attraction to someone than it would be for someone who is asexual and is not somewhere along that spectrum, or is at the very beginning, like the very hard part of that spectrum. Because there's some ace folks who are not necessarily sex negative, but they are personally sex negative, they're sex averse, they're sex repulsed. And for those people, it would be far more difficult for them to ever experience, I guess, what is considered a normal sort of level of sexual attraction. And also, I see Mark's second comment. I don't want people to think that Mark was being bad in that wording. This is a really tough thing to talk about, and I appreciate that Mark had the bravery to say what they said, because it's a really important thing that people should be talking about and should be asking. Since sexuality is a spectrum, it's possible that some people who are asexual will at some point in their lives no longer be asexual. And I am at some point going to have a conversation about things like conversion therapy and the sexual spectrum, because those ideas are actually tied together. And it's really important that those of us who are LGBT have defenses against people who are going to say, hey, because sexuality is a spectrum, we should try to get you to a normal level of sexual attraction, or we should get you to a normal orientation. And that is nonsense, because even though sexuality is a spectrum, and sometimes people will change over the course of their lives, that doesn't mean that there's things that people can do that would actually move them along that spectrum. And it especially doesn't mean that we should, I guess, try to change people. That is nonsense. Anyone who says that's bad, but at some points, homophobes are going to get smarter. And at some point, acephobic people are going to get smarter. And they're going to try to use these sorts of arguments. And it's important that those of us who are here now already have defenses prepared, so that way children in the future and adults in the future, because it's not just children who are subjected to conversion therapy, but the majority of people who are subjected to conversion therapy are children. But it's important that all of us have defenses ready, and it's important that all of us actually talk about these sorts of things. Also, I'm super glad that theists are having a conversation in the chat, because usually my conversations are like very atheistic centered, which is cool. But I am one of those people who's aware that pagans need and deserve spaces where they can feel comfortable talking about paganism, and not just pagans, but anyone who, I guess, is just someone who's not a monotheist, but someone who worships another set of gods that don't have like a fancy term like some pagans do, like heathens, for example. Or I'm trying to remember the people who worship Shintoists, Taoists. Shintoists and Taoists aren't the same thing. But now that I've talked about romantic attraction and sexual attraction, I do want to take some time to talk about terms like crushes and squishes, which are actually not the same thing. And it's important that people realize that, because these are terms that are really useful and that anyone can use, because everyone can experience a crush or a squish without realizing what it is that they're experiencing and without understanding the differences. So a crush, which is the term that all of us, or at the very least most of us, probably recognize, is describing what is possibly a sexual attraction to someone, but is usually a romantic attraction to someone. And it's really important that people understand this. And there are positive crushes and there's negative crushes, but unfortunately, that's a little bit too nuanced to get into in this particular conversation. So I'm not going to do that here, but I probably will be writing about that over on Patreon. Also, I'm going to have a Patreon only post by the end of today where I'm going to be talking about what I'm going to be doing with my Patreon. And it's going to be super cool. So if you have $1 a month that you don't mind giving to an asexual content creator, you could always donate it to me, and it would help me not starve, which is, as we've talked about before, really important. But what a crush is it's a romantic and possibly sexual attraction to someone. And it's a desire for companionship. It's also something that's usually accompanied by, in some cases, intense fantasies, especially because as crushes go on and as people have more and more crushes, and as people's crushes develop in intensity, crushes can become a negative thing. But a squish is, some people describe it as an aromantic equivalent of a crush, but that's not a super great description of what a squish is. A squish is, in essence, a let's see. Yeah, if I could receive super chats, that would be so helpful, y'all. Also, for some reason, some comments get flagged as like needing my review, which is weird. I don't know why that is. So if your comment doesn't immediately pop up, just let me know. But also, since I have the chat pulled up, I can go ahead and just like click on them. Usually, my understanding is that moderators can do the same thing, but one of the only channels that I'm a moderator for is Wonder Lady. And over on Wonder Lady's channel, I'm usually in the conversations as they're happening, so I can't always look at it. But yeah, also pay attention to folklorists. They're really bad. Both Ocean and Callan have spoken out against them. And there's a whole bunch of other people. It's just that those are the two pagans that I know the best who've spoken and talked about them in the past. Folklorists, bad. And I don't normally use terminology that like gray, but so what a squish is it's oftentimes a desire for companionship in some form or another, especially because I actually am a mod on your channel, but Measlebub, I haven't been super active on a lot of the channels I'm a moderator for, which is unfortunate. Focused. Sorry. My English is bad, guys. I'm doing my best. I want to do live streams in Spanish at some point, but my Spanish is like... my Spanish is not good. I know that was probably very confusing sounding, so allow me to clarify. Spanish is bad, guys. I can read and I can write in it if you give me like enough time. And I have videos in Spanish, and I have ideas for more videos in Spanish, but I just haven't like had that much time to make content in Spanish. Making content in Spanish is actually like, it's something that I deeply love, and some of my actually most popular videos are videos of mine in Spanish, but it's just so intense and so nerve-wracking because I'm someone who I like obsess over every little mistake I make. So if I notice a mistake, I will go back and I will like re-edit, and then I'll have to reshoot. So sometimes me making a video in Spanish, even if that video is only 5 minutes long, can take several days. But then me making a video in English that's almost 30 minutes long takes me about 40 minutes. So I actually make videos like incredibly fast when I'm sitting down and I'm just like working on them, but I'm usually not. So, and that's partially because I want to make a living off of YouTube or off of YouTube and freelance writing, but I'm not at the point where I can be monetized yet. So some people joke about me being obsessed with numbers. And in fairness, I kind of am, but only to the extent that I want to be monetized. So I actually do pay attention to the numbers, but I don't like, I feel like saying I obsess over them is a little bit mean, but I can understand where that like gentle ribbing comes from. And I think it's fair for people to look at me and be like, you care a lot about numbers, don't you? It's like, yeah, because I want to make a living doing this. I do several hours a week doing YouTube stuff. It would be nice if I got compensated for that. But yeah, so a squish, I'm going to talk a little bit about what a squish is on the Avon Wiki, which if you've never seen it, is an incredible resource. And it's easy to say that it's an incredible resource for asexuals, but honestly, if I could make any single law in the world be passed immediately, it would be that any person who wants to have a conversation about sexuality has to spend at least an hour reading the Avon Wiki. And it's really important that as many people as possible look at it. They are probably the best resource in English in the world for asexuals, and they are just a great resource for anything related to sexuality. So a squish, according to Avon, and this is part of the reason I preface this by saying that, like, calling it an aromantic counterpart for a crush isn't great, because they describe it as a squish is an aromantic counterpart for a crush. A squish is an emotional desire for a strong platonic relationship with someone. These relationships often take the form of deep friendships, queer platonic pairings, and occasionally partnering. The envisioned relationship is usually more emotionally intimate than a typical friendship. A squish can be towards anyone of any gender, and a person may also have many squishes, all of which may be active. And that is a really solid definition of a squish. It's just that I personally don't particularly like the idea that it's an aromantic counterpart. I would say that it's, I guess, the aromantic equivalent, but not necessarily limited to asexuals or aromantics. Great brain flip there. And now I'm going to talk about the difference. I'm going to talk about two different things, and these relate to my experience as both an asexual and as a demisexual. Sensual attraction. Sensual attraction is in essence an emotional or physical desire to engage in sensual acts with a person that the attraction is felt towards. Sensuality is a pleasure that involves the senses. And this is one of the reasons why it is that some asexuals and lots of asexuals need to get better at talking about things like pleasure. And there's actually lots of voices who are really good at this already. This isn't something I've spent a lot of time talking about extensively, but I have asexual friends who do write and talk a whole lot about this. I'm also going to be recommending in future videos like this, I'm going to be having lists pulled up if I can figure out how to use OBS. People have offered to teach me, but you guys have to understand that when it comes to technology, I'm a dum-dum. And it's absolutely fair for someone to call me a technological dum-dum. I remember that earlier this year, I did a live stream on my channel that had someone else. And I got super excited because it was one of the first live streams I ever did. And what I did was, it was a Google Hangout that I sent the link to someone else for, which is what Wonder Lady and I do for our Wednesday Humanist Perspectives, which is the series that I do with Wonder Lady every Wednesday. Still doing that. I'm a big fan. Hope y'all go and check it out. If Wonder Lady wants to plug herself in the comment section down below or in the chat, that would be great. I would be a big fan. But what I did was I just sent them the link to the Google Hangout, which is what you're supposed to do. But I got so excited that it worked, because there have been so many times when that hasn't worked, when I've tried to have group chats, even ones that weren't recorded, and just had like a fun time, and it just didn't work because I don't know how to work the internet. The internet, it's a mystery, goes right over my head. But what essential attraction is something that a lot of people experience, and it involves, for a lot of people, the way that it's coded is that it involves touch. And that's not the only way to experience essential attraction. I think it's really important that we be better at talking about sensual attractions, but that's one of the forms of attractions that asexuals and aromantics can feel. And lots of asexuals and lots of aromantics have difficulty talking about these sorts of things because people don't really want to listen to us when we talk about them. So oftentimes it's like we're yelling into the void. And as a consequence of this, people don't understand that for some asexuals and for some aromantic folks, things like touch deprivation can be a serious issue. As an asexual person who is still a sexual being, as an asexual person who exists in sexual spaces, this isn't as much of an issue for me as it is for some other folks. But it's really important that people listen to us and that people actually understand that, one, touch deprivation is a serious thing, and also that asexuals and aromantics can still like pleasurable stuff. And Triatal just said for them, central attraction is wanting to be held, hugged, or have their hair brushed. And I'm someone who I really like it when people mess with my hair. If you guys are ever like, if we ever meet face to face and someone just like gives me a head pat, I'm like, hell yeah, that is it, man. That's it, chief. You did it. And it's not like a particularly strange thing. It's just something that a lot of people have. I also am someone who like I really like holding people's hands. And I do that. I've done this platonically before, but as a male from a very anti-LGBT society, one of the things that can happen with that is that people can have homophobic responses to it, or people can assume that this is a romantic thing, when in actuality it's just, hey, I value you, I think you're pretty dope, and I think that holding your hand would be pretty tight. And that's the way that it usually is for me, but that's not the way that it often comes across to other people, which kind of sucks. But another really important thing that people should understand is aesthetic attraction. Some people say things like someone can have a fetish for blondes. And that's not necessarily the case for a lot of different folks, not just asexual folks, but some people can just like the aesthetic of someone with blonde hair. I'm going to be personal for like 2 seconds here, and I'm going to say that I have an aesthetic attraction to red hair. And this is part of the reason why like I just talk about red hair a lot. Lots of characters in the stories that I write have red hair. It's just me, I guess, sort of like explaining what it is that I like. But an aesthetic attraction is an attraction to other people that's based off of the aesthetic of someone. This is not a sexual attraction. This is not a romantic attraction. This is just liking the way someone looks. And Jesus Christ, it's really important that people understand that this is a thing that people can have. Asexuals can have this. Allosexuals can have this. People who are gray can have this. It's just, it would be tight if people knew that these things existed. One of the big barriers that comes between like asexuals and allosexuals in terms of communicating, and this is something that I talked about in Asexuality O'Clock #2. Also, hey Sassy, you're dope. I got to see one of your videos yesterday. I haven't had time to actually sit down and watch like your videos yet, but I'm going to, and I'm super excited about that. Oh, also, thanks, Sal. For a long time, I thought about like getting rid of my glasses. I still kind of want to, but I don't know if I want corrective surgery or if I want contacts. But I also kind of like my glasses. As a little kid, the thing that I was told was like my glasses made me look like Harry Potter. And in fairness, as a very small child, the glasses that I had did make me look a little bit like Harry Potter. So that was like awesome. I was super down for that. But it's really important that allosexuals and asexuals start to have sort of the same language, which is part of the reason I want this video not necessarily to go viral or anything, but I want this video to be up. And at some point, I am going to make concrete videos that are not live streams where I can get distracted and have fun with y'all that are actually super focused on these topics individually, because this barrier of language is a really serious problem for asexuals who want to go public about their asexuality. Because one of the biggest fears that a lot of asexuals I know have is that they're going to be discriminated against and that people are going to not understand what asexuality means. One of the big things I hear is that basically a lot of us are worried that we're going to be conflated with aromantics, and also that aromantics are getting the short end of the stick. And aromantics are getting the short end of the stick. It really sucks that aromantics are getting the short end of the stick. I would say it's worse for people who are both asexual and aromantic. But the reality is, like, there being an aromantic person in a modern day society like right now for a whole lot of folks would suck, because all of your representation is just so bad. All of your representation that actually like really matters, like all of the previous fictional characters, most of them are like broken people. They're people who have like serious personality quirks and they're just seen in like such negative lights. In some cases, a handful of them are atheists, such as someone who I'm trying to think of the guy from The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon. Sheldon is an asexual, aromantic, and towards the end of the series, that kind of shifts. Not when Sheldon begins dating someone, but there are events that happen towards the end of The Big Bang Theory that indicate that the way Sheldon was is not necessarily the way Sheldon is now. Also, I'm so happy that so many people are now chilling in the comment section. You guys have no idea how exciting it is for me to see like so many people, because I always wondered what it'd be like to have just an absolutely poppin' live stream. And now I have that. And an asexual is someone who doesn't experience sexual attraction or doesn't feel it very often. Most asexuals who are like in the know about asexual language would probably say that they fall closer towards the first camp, the one that doesn't experience sexual attraction, than the second. But there's some folks like me who are in the second camp who are capable of experiencing sexual attraction under some circumstances. In my case, as a demisexual, I have to have a sort of emotional bond with someone, and demisexuality is probably way more common than people realize, because I've seen so many people try to dismiss demisexuality as just people being choosy that I have to wonder if we did like an absolutely true research poll on the entire world, just how many people would be like, oh yeah, I'm demi. But yeah, and I think it's really important that language starts to become more similar, because one of the things that really sucks about the Avon Wiki is that most people only know it as a resource for asexuals, and it's not. It's so good for so many people. And I think that most people I know who care even a little bit about sex and sexuality, who would read the Avon Wiki, would find it to be an incredible resource that helps them understand themselves, even if they previously self-identified as the straightest people on Earth. Because there are terms here that really help people and that apply to people from a wide range of camps. Some of the things that are here that could apply to anyone of any sort of sexual orientation are aesthetic attraction, sensual attraction, and romantic attraction. Because when we talk about the word heterosexual, when we talk about the word straight, we're talking about words that refer to sexuality and not romantic orientation. And usually these terms are conflated, which sucks because they really shouldn't be. They are not the same thing, and it is in fact entirely possible for someone to be sexually attracted to one gender and romantically attracted to the other. And this is something that happens, I'm not going to say super frequently, but something that happens a fair amount, especially if you're in a society that tries to tell people to deny themselves and to be something that they're not. And it's easy for those of us who are unfortunate enough to live in the Bible Belt, or for those of us who are, also you guys can probably hear a plane now, that's tight. For those of us who are unfortunate enough to live in a place like, say, the Bible Belt or Central America, or for those of us who have left cults, this is a really common thing. People, those of us who are queer, might have lied to ourselves throughout our whole lives and told ourselves that we were romantically and sexually attracted to one gender and that gender happened to be the other. This is something that is the case for most of the queer ex-Mormons that I know. I'm not going to say that it is the case for all of them, but it's the case for a lot of them. And the ex-Mormons are probably the best example of either a cult or like something that's cult adjacent that I can think of off the top of my head. But other groups could be Southern Baptists or the Jehovah's Witnesses. Almost said Jehovah's Temple there for a second. I'm lucky enough that I now no longer live in like a particularly religious place, so I have like started to forget some of the like worst religious stuff that I remembered before. And it's funny because like as a historian, a lot of what I personally studied and a lot of what I found really fascinating was religious history, which was just really rough. Religious history is not good. It's bad stuff, guys. But if we can sort of make common, if we can, I guess, normalize the terminology that asexuals use, then asexuals and allosexuals can start to be on the same page. And if we start to be on the same page, then it can be easier for us to have nuanced conversations, and it can be easier for us to listen to each other. One of the things that I recommend is that there was a YouTube person who is, I don't know if they're a new subscriber, but they definitely started commenting more recently, and their YouTube channel name is 1 Second Too Late. And they had a really fantastic idea for an acronym. They said it was GAD, and it was Grays, Aces, Arrows, and Demis. And that is the sort of, I guess, fusion term. I don't know if this was their idea. It kind of seemed like it was from the comments they left, but I think that that is a fantastic acronym, probably the single best acronym that I've heard to describe, I guess, the asexual and aromantic spectrums, because the sort of terminologies that asexuals use, the terms like grays and demis, are terms that people who are aro use as well. And I think that that's a really cool thing. They're not always perfect matches, but they are matches that most of the ace and aro folks that I know use. And as an answer to Sassy Atheist, it is not hard for me to be in a relationship as an asexual. I dated an ace person, and it was a really solid relationship. The thing that happened with us was that we didn't have enough time for the relationship to continue. My current partner is allo, and she's queer as well. It's not hard for me to date her as an asexual, because for me, what happens is I sometimes experience bouts of sexual revulsion, but she also does as well. So those are things that when they happen, it's not really an issue for us. And also, we're in a long distance relationship. So that makes things like sex and sexuality easier for us to discuss differently, instead of us having to have, like, say, embarrassed bedroom conversations, which is a thing I had to do in a previous relationship. And unfortunately, when I was dating the person I was with at that time, I was also just beginning to discover that I was ace. I was just beginning to realize that ace is like a valid term, and that ace is a term that applied to me. Because, like most people, I wasn't raised in a household or in cultures that were particularly advanced when it came to sex and sexuality. My family wasn't bad when it came to sex and sexuality. It was just, it wasn't really something we talked about, which is a very common experience in a lot of Latinx households. And also, if you're new to my channel, I do use social justice terminology a whole lot. And if that's not something that you use, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you for not using that. But I do use terms like Latinx. I'm one of the heads of a Latinx group called the Latinx Humanist Alliance, which is a social justice arm of the American Humanist Association. We do lots of cool stuff. I'm planning for us to be a lot more active in the future. So I'm hoping that people who are here will be interested in that. I am going to do a live stream talking about that specifically, but not at any point in the near future. And also, Sassy, I would be super down to collaborate. If that's something you want to do, send me a DM. I have a Twitter. I'm pretty sure we follow each other on Twitter already, but I can't always remember who I do and don't follow, so sorry. But yeah, so one of the reasons I am not a humanist priest yet. I want to be. And a humanist priest, I feel like that's terminology that's going to confuse people. But for folks who are interested, I am interested in becoming a humanist clergy person. And really what that really means is I want to be an ordained person. I want to be a secular celebrant. But it also means that I want to engage in congregational spaces and have chats. The reason why I want to do that is because a lot of people who come from my community, who are Hispanic and or Latinx, are people who are not super religious, but they understand that the church provides stuff and the church gives a community for a lot of people. So I know plenty of Hispanic atheists who keep going to church, who are open and public about their atheism, but they don't have an equivalent community. And what I want to do is I want to start a humanist, a sort of humanist congregation that does services in English and in Spanish. So that way any humanist or atheist from Latin America can feel comfortable coming on down. And Callan just said that that means that I'm going to have to learn how to handle us religious folks. In fairness, I feel like for most of the time that I've been on YouTube making videos as both an atheist and a humanist, I've been one of the voices who's been not super toxic towards religious people. even towards Christians. I only rarely talk about Christianity in a particularly negative light, and usually only in spaces where people are like angry, because the reality is, as an atheist who was made fun of as a queer person by Christians, and as someone who went to Christian spaces and existed in those spaces and became self-hating, I did have anger and frustration, and a lot of that anger and frustration is valid. And I'm not gonna pretend that all that's just gone away. It hasn't, but it's something that I'm learning to deal with, and I am more than happy to have conversations with theists. I want to learn about how to do like live streams with theists that are super cool and super chill. And I think that Callan and Ocean, who, for those of you who are new to my channel and for those of you who don't exist in atheistic spaces, those two are super dope pagans that people should be following. I think it would be super cool to have conversations with them that are live streamed on the channel, so that way people could listen. Ocean has a series with Surus the Skeptic, who is another YouTuber. Surus Skeptic. Someone's gonna correct me in the comments, so that's fine. But Ocean has a podcast that they run with Surus, and the two of them talk about things from a pagan and from an atheistic perspective. So that's cool. But I'm gonna keep this video going a little bit over an hour, so I'm not gonna start to wrap this up quite yet, because I'm having a lot of fun, and I think it's really cool to be having these sorts of chats in this particular way, because oftentimes I only get to chat with people. Oh wait, is it just Cirrus now? Aw, that sucks. I hope Ocean's okay. I know Ocean's on Twitter. Ocean and I follow each other. We chat from time to time, but it's been a while since I've chatted with Ocean, which sucks. But I think that that podcast was really important. I hope that I can one day produce content that's not necessarily the same, but similar, that helps people understand paganism, especially because a lot of people have accused me of being a pagan. Most people have done it jokingly, but I have a fascination with the Mesoamerican deities, and I know a whole lot about Mesoamerican paganism. So some people are just like, "Are you a pagan?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I just think that paganism's cool." And my partner is a pagan. I'm dating a pagan who lives over in Georgia. She's awesome. She has a YouTube channel. I would advertise it, but a lot of people here subscribe to her already. A lot of my folks already subscribe to her. She and I are working on a video that aims to introduce non-pagans to paganists to like basic questions about paganism and stuff, and about her branch of paganism. She hasn't really defined her branch of paganism super clearly yet. She's still exploring, but she's super cool. She and I do have a podcast together that we've been meaning to work on more, called Thought Train, which is just two Southerners, two queer non-Christian Southerners talking about stuff. We did videos on sexual education and on Christmas stuff. I have videos that I haven't uploaded because in some cases they've been tricky. We did a Valentine's Day special that was never uploaded that I might upload late, or I might just upload next year for Valentine's Day. And we also did a video on mental health that was like super serious, and that YouTube was just not working with me on. It was like a full almost hour long, and then it just like, hey, YouTube was like, hey, you know this video? What if I don't let it upload? Yeah, YouTube is not super tight, guys. She is Anna Claire Hardy. I'll go in the comments section, and I will actually like share this. She is Wiccan, but she's also pagan, and she identifies as both. She and I are going to be doing videos together talking about like this sort of stuff, which is super cool. In all honesty, it's entirely possible she's watching this right now. She sometimes watches my live streams. She's a big fan of me and Wonder Lady, so I think that's really cool. She usually watches the Wednesday live streams, and she sometimes comments on them. But I was super interested in Mesoamerican paganism, and there was a period when I was an omnist, which is a sort of generic term for people who, at the very least, the way it was described to me and the way I applied it to myself, was it was folks who believed that all deities existed in some variation or another. And the deities that I was most fascinated by were the Mesoamerican deities. Not just Central American ones, but some of the Central American ones. I was, I guess, a mixed person in terms of that. And Anna is also super fantastic. If someone does have her channel offhand, that would be great. I'm subscribed to her, but she doesn't make videos super often. She's made videos talking about mental health and like her experiences, and it's just super cool. But yeah, so I think it's really important to be having these conversations. These live streams are not meant to be super formal. So if that's not something that you like, I completely understand. My next Asexuality O'Clock video, which will be coming out sometime soon, talks about some of the terms I'm using today. It's going to be in the vein of one of my first asexual videos, which was honestly one of my favorite videos of all time. I've talked about this before, but in the video where I came out as an asexual on YouTube, although people who followed me on social media already knew about my asexuality, I made an, I think, like 7-minute long video where I talked about Ratchet and Clank, and I talked about Ace, the character Ace Hardlight. It was great. I'm going to start to diversify Asexuality O'Clock because some of the live streams are going to have folks. Both of the live streams so far have had folks. There is no hidden live streams or whatever y'all can find on my channel. But if people are interested and if people let me know that they would want me to do stuff that's like Patreon only to talk about asexuality and stuff, I would be super down with that, but I wouldn't want to do it if my current patrons wouldn't be interested in it, although my current patrons would be, all 3 of y'all. I know who all 3 of y'all are. Y'all are wonderful. I'm a big fan. 2 of my patrons are actually here, and then 1 of my patrons is a formal academic who just really likes the stuff that I do and the stuff that I write. And he is not a YouTuber, but he's the head of an atheistic group. Not the head of an atheistic group. He's the head of a historical group that talks about the history of atheism and secularity. And then my other 2 patrons are here, or at the very least they were. I know that one of them is here. I don't know if the other one's still here. He might have had to go. But polytheists and atheists, the things that I like about both of our communities is that for the most part, we tend to be cool with people independent of their religion, and in a lot of cases independent of their sexuality or gender. Obviously, that's not always the case. The atheistic community on YouTube sort of fractured itself over recent dumb things, and I'm not going to be talking about that. I don't know enough to talk about that, which is the main reason I haven't. But polytheists are also super cool like that, and I've always super admired lots of polytheists, both on Twitter and off Twitter. I've always been super excited to like see what polytheists are creating and subscribe to polytheistic creators. Some of my favorite folks on YouTube are people who talk openly and intelligently about religion, spirituality, and those different things. I've started talking a little bit more positively about spirituality, but like as an atheist who doesn't believe in anything supernatural, it's difficult for me to talk intelligently about spirituality. And I don't like denigrating people who are spiritual, who are also atheistic. And I have like positive thoughts about spirituality. I just don't know how to like intelligently talk about them. So that's part of the reason why I don't, because I'm one of those people who thinks before I talk. And I tend to be like, if I can talk about this intelligently, I will, but if I can't talk about this intelligently, I won't. And I don't know, but if you ask me, it sure would be kind of cool if more people had that attitude about things. I guess that's like vague tubing, the YouTube equivalent of like vague tweeting. But yeah, the YouTube atheist community sort of fractured itself. Not that it was ever any really like one community anyway, and it's perfectly fine that it fractured itself, because like lots of different people are cool in different communities. It's just that like every community that I can think of has one person who at the very least sucks a little bit. I feel like in my community, I'm one of those people who sucks like a little bit, but I do my best to like improve and to learn and actually think critically about stuff. And I care more about social issues than I do about religion, which is part of the reason why most of my videos don't talk about religion. I kind of wish that I had a series where I could just have like a casual chat with folks. And I don't know how to do that intelligently because I worry that like people who are subscribed to me would see that and they think that it's a serious video and it's not, or like a real video. And I don't like that. I don't want people to come into like, I don't want people to come into my videos thinking that it's going to be like a real video and it's just me having a casual chat with folks. I'm not cool with that. I feel like that's like a waste of people's time. And people are now wondering if they're the one who sucks. And I didn't mean to do that. Well, I am kind of doing that right now, but that's because I've talked about the terms and I'm going to check because there's still time for me to do. Oh, I didn't talk about primary and secondary attraction. Cool. So my favorite model of sexuality is the primary and secondary model. And I actually can believe that I didn't talk about that because I have made a video talking explicitly about primary versus secondary attraction. And what primary versus secondary attraction are they're two different criterion for sexual desires and for sexual actions. And what the primary attraction is it's primary. It's primary because it's based off of things that people can't control. It's based off of things like their appearance or their gender. And people who are allosexual have some level of primary attraction. And also, I'm super sorry. Do people actually like the whiteboard? I know that people were commenting earlier about like thinking it was funny that like my head was basically like a cat peeking over. I really like the whiteboard and I want the whiteboard to be in my videos, but I got the whiteboard for my birthday. And what happened with it was I tried putting it on my wall where I normally film, and it just didn't work. I couldn't get it to stay. So now, if people actually like the whiteboard, I think I probably will bring it back and talk about it in videos because I'm a big fan of the whiteboard. There are a couple of non-atheistic and non-asexual YouTubers I follow who do some educational content, and they use like whiteboards. But primary attraction is this attraction to someone based off of like characteristics that you can observe. And secondary sexual attraction or secondary sexual desires are desires that are based off of, say, an emotional bond or a desire to procreate or something like that. And this is a very functional. I appreciate that people are standing the whiteboard so much because I spent $16 getting it for my birthday last year, like the year that I moved to DC, and I didn't know that people were gonna like it, so I thought I would have it in a video. I'm pretty sure I have it in a video somewhere, and I just like, it might just be in the screen for all of 2 seconds, so people might not have noticed. But I actually got it explicitly for YouTube, and because I couldn't keep it on the wall, the first time I deleted a message that was on the whiteboard was today. My mom helped me get it. We got it together. And what happened with it is also, I appreciate folks, man, y'all are wonderful. This live stream is almost over. I think that what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about primary and secondary attraction, and then we will, I guess, just end the stream. In the future, I probably will have after parties. I don't think I'm going to have an after party today. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, an after party in this context is just a chance for people to hop on like a single stream and for us to have like a recorded conversation, which I guess is like a super casual thing. It's something that Neil, the 604 atheist, Bemeaslebub, I think Bemeaslebubs might have done it once or twice, and Wonder Lady do, and a couple of other folks do as well, like Lavender Lady. And it's just a really fun thing, a really casual opportunity for folks to chat. It's really cool. But secondary sexual attraction, which is the sexual attraction that I, as a demisexual, experience, is a sexual attraction that's based off of things that you learn and based off of things that can be observed, or based off of other desires that are not sex for pleasure or sexual attraction based off of someone's appearance. And that's a really rough description. I am going to come back into this and I'm going to come back into this in the future. So if folks want to come back to this video, and this is going to be really useful for people later on, people who I guess watch the video after the stream is over, who want to see like, I guess a sort of link section. Wonder Lady is my link person. If you guys aren't subscribed to Wonder Lady, you absolutely should be. Wonder Lady's fantastic. We do videos every Wednesday. So if you like my face, I don't know why you would. Or if you like my voice, I also don't know why you would. But if you do, that's where you should go. I'm on Wonder Lady's channel every week. And also, Sassy, I'm right there with you. I can't pronounce Bub's name either. I don't even try. I have had a hard time saying Mrs. Snarky before, and Mrs. Snarky made fun of me for it up until like last week. So... But primary and secondary attraction and the primary and secondary sexual attraction model is a really useful model for aces who still have sex, or for aces who are capable of experiencing sexual attraction. If you want to talk about these sorts of things, there are different models of sexual attraction, and that's just the one that's my personal favorite. It's the one that I use the most when I talk about how I experience. And also, I am not going to try that, Callan. I would not. I can't even say your name in our DM stream. Our DM stream. I can't even say your name in our D&D stream. Also, for those of you who don't know, Callan and I and Iseth Original and Zal and a couple of other folks do D&D every Sunday. Zal was in the chat earlier, stopped by and say hi, and I really appreciated Zal making an appearance. He might still be here. I don't know if he is, but if he is, I would love for him to plug his D&D stream, because Zal is a Twitch streamer who's a really fun DM, and we have a great time. I usually try to convince people not to murder people, and everyone else just wants to do lots of murder hoboing. It's a great time because my character is not super fun with murder. But I really appreciate the chat we're having. But the reason for different models of sexual attraction, and that might be the next live stream that I do. That's like a Saturday live stream. I'm debating that. And I probably will ask for people's curiosity and for people's input to help me decide that, which means that's a clever way for me to say you should follow me on Twitter, because following me on Twitter, I'm more active on Twitter than I am anywhere else online. I tweet just about every day. And also, Aded is right in saying that I should plug in Alignment Unknown. Alignment Unknown is a D&D stream that Godless Cranium does with Essence of Thought, Utida, who's Essence of Thought's partner, Aded Furball, Inane Dragon, and myself. And we go around doing various Dragonborn kobold-based shenanigans. Our entire party is not Dragonborn and kobolds, but we make up the majority of them. So I do a lot of D&D, and I'm actually on so many streams and stuff every week that it's kind of surprising that, like, people who only follow me on YouTube don't see me in more spaces. But I guess it's because, like, my subscribers are actually not majority atheistic. A lot of folks who subscribe to me are atheists, but there's also a lot of people who subscribe to me for history content and for asexual content. So you can follow me for a range of reasons. And I bet if I asked folks, I wish that there was a way to do like a poll of the people who are in the chat to see who is everyone. Oh, Dragonborn Sorcerer. I'm a Dragonborn Barbarian. Aded is a Dragon Ball. Aded is a Dragonborn Ranger, and Essence of Thought is a Kobold Paladin. And it's super fun. I had a monk who died very tragically, and my monk character is basically who my bard character is. If you watch the Zal's D&D stuff, which is Chaotic Roll and Godless Cranium is Alignment Unknown. That's probably the easiest way for me to remember that, because remembering everyone's names is just sort of taxing on me. But the reason for different models of sexuality is to explain different sexual behaviors and to explain different sexual orientations and different reasons for sexual attractions. And these models of sexuality, there's a lot more than just the one that I described, but that is the one that I personally find the most useful. I have a feeling if more people were aware of it, it would probably be the one that a lot of ace folks would use. Maybe not every ace folk, because there are some that better explain, I guess, things like being a solid asexual person, which in the context that I'm using it means that you're someone who doesn't experience any sexual attraction under any circumstances. There are models that better fit that, but then if you're someone like me who's demisexual, or if you're an asexual person in a sexual relationship with an allosexual, then there are models that better explain why it is that you might be engaging in sexual activity and in sexual behaviors. And all of this stuff is really important. All of this stuff is really useful. And I'm sorry that today's stream was a little bit chaotic, but I also had fun. I'm hoping that y'all learned stuff. I did explain stuff that to some people here was new. So I'm super glad that folks are enjoying the stream, and now that I talked about D&D, more people are just having a fun old chat in the comment section. I love D&D so much, and I didn't think I would enjoy I didn't think that I would enjoy Roll20 as much as I do, which for those of you who aren't D&D folks, Roll20 is a sort of online forum that people can use to play D&D together. Lots of D&D podcasts use Roll20 because most D&D podcasts are made up of people who don't live in the same area. Also, hi, welcome to the Anime Parade. That's a super cool name. That's also a really long name, but I appreciate that. Cool name. I'm a huge anime person, and I write fiction. I write fantasy and stuff. And one of my characters, there's several jokes about how one of my characters was a weeb, one of the main characters for my current biggest story that people are actually really liking over on Royal Road. I'm probably going to be doing a video talking about what it is that I write when I write fantasy, because I really like writing, and when I was younger I wanted to be a novelist. I don't want to do that anymore, but man, if I wanted to make a living as a writer, or if I ever wanted to be a novelist, it would be super cool for people to be interested in that part of my life. But yeah, my character was made fun of in a story, and the character is not quite a self-insert, but the character is kind of like a self-insert, because coming up with people is hard, and I feel like there's this big stigma against self-inserted characters that really shouldn't be there. But over on Royal Road, I run a story called A Modern Monster's Second Chance at Life, which is super fantasy, and it's also super urban. And for those of you who are anime folks and who like light novels, it's isekai, technically. Yeah, so if you like fantasy, you can check me out on Royal Road. I need to come up with a bio that contains all of my links, because people don't know how to follow me because I'm on so many places, which is one of the things that happens if you're someone who wants to make a living being online and you do a whole bunch of different stuff. But Sailor Moon's cool. Sailor Moon was technically the first anime I ever watched. I just didn't know that it was anime, and I was 15 when I realized it was an anime. I only watched a little bit of Sailor Moon. I got super into Pokemon. So Pokemon was the first real anime I ever watched. My favorite anime, though, I thought about making a Wings Club joke, and if you follow me on Twitter, you saw that I tweeted about Wings Club earlier today. But I'm going to respond to a question, and then I'm going to start to close out the stream because I don't want this to be super long. But so the biggest or first thing that happened to let me know that I was ace was when I first started having sex, actually, which is not the case for everyone. Lots of ace folks are lucky enough to know that they're ace before they have sex. And one of the biggest ace-phobic things that some people do is they sort of impose a litmus test on asexuals by saying, it's hey, how can you know? I am going to have a Wings Club stream one of these days. Wings Club, and I'm saying this unironically, is my favorite TV show. I don't like World of Winx, World of Winx is kind of bad, but like the original Winx Club, I grew up in Colombia and in Honduras, and I was able to see the international English dub. And the international English dub was not quite as like feminized as the 4Kids TV and then as the Nickelodeon dubs were, which is really unfortunate. But if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted about how there was an English dub thing that happened when there was a moment in, I think, season 6 of the English dub wherein Aisha slash Layla is proposed to. And in the 4Kids dub, I will send out links to the isekai story. I have 2 more pure isekai stories that I am in the process of writing and editing that I will be uploading to Royal Road. I really should just do a stream where I talk about like writing. I might do that tomorrow because I don't have a video uploaded for tomorrow. I might just do a stream where I talk about like writing in and of itself. But I will. Oh no, Pokemon's great. What happened with the Winx Club in season 6 is the Princess Layla, who's one of the main characters, gets proposed to. And in the like international English dub, it's just a straight proposal. But in the American English dubs, the 4Kids TV and the Nickelodeon ones, her boyfriend asks her if she wants to be his forever girlfriend. And honestly, I think that if I said that to anyone that I have ever dated, I'm pretty sure they would break up with me because that doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. And it makes you feel like you're never going to get proposed to, which is bad. But that is one of the reasons why in the United States, Winx Club was never as popular as it was in other parts of the world, because other parts of the world use the Rai English dub. And the Rai English dub is a lot more, like, it doesn't pander so hard to like female audience members, which is both a good and a bad thing. Like if you were like a little boy like I was, it was easier for you to watch a show like Winx Club in Latin America because it wasn't quite so heavily feminine. But it also kind of sucks for some audiences because like a show like Winx Club being super girly is really cool and really empowering to lots of little girls. So, and also, I was like a really small kid when Winx Club started coming out. I was like 8 when Winx Club first started showing. So I'm able to talk about that in the words that I used, which were rough. But like it made sense for me because I was 8 when Winx Club first started showing. And the show, the American English show, sucks. It's so bad. But I spent several years in Colombia. So when I first started watching it in the United States, I was like, oh, this is really bad. And like I didn't understand why my friends weren't as into Winx Club as I was up until I started seeing what the United States did to it. But going back to the topic, because boy, I am bad at staying on topic, guys. But going back to the topic that I was talking about originally, what happened with me to help me figure out that I was ace was when I started having sex, I started realizing that I wasn't particularly sexually attracted to my partner. And that is not a fun thing to hear for so many reasons. That's a big yikes for your partner, especially because my partner and I had been together for not several years, but we've been together for most of a year at that point. And my partner and I had conversations about it, and we did like have sex and stuff. We continued having sex because I liked sex and so did they. So it was cool. But like I can only imagine. And like it took me a while for me to realize the sort of like what was wrong with how I communicated that, which is part of the reason why it's important that there are asexuals online creating asexual content and being like, hey, if you're an asexual and you want to talk to your allosexual partner, Jesus Christ, think before you do it. Yeah. It also like it would have helped me so much. And the thing is, my partner and I did have an understanding, and we stayed together for several years. Some people here know who I'm talking about. Some people don't. I'm not going to get super into the details of that because there are people here who know the person I'm talking about, and there's one person here who actually met the person I'm talking about, like face to face. But yeah, so for me, it was a really frustrating experience. and I didn't understand sexual attraction. Like, I understood the basic concepts behind sexual attraction. I had done research. I cared about this topic because I was starting to discover that I really was queer, and I didn't quite know what that meant for me. I wondered if I was gay. And this is something that some aces can relate to, especially aces who didn't get a whole lot of sex ed, which was the case for me, very unfortunately. And it's really important that there are those of us who are here who are like, hey, if you're an ace person and you're dating an allo person, that can work. There's so many different things to make that work, but it can work. But you got to have knowledge. And I didn't have knowledge growing up. I became a smarty pants before I started going to I started gaining knowledge right before I started going to college. My brain turned off there for a second, so I hope you'll forgive it. But yeah, and I am super appreciative of the fact that I now have my own little ace community and that I can talk to other aces about this, because it is super worrying for me to talk about the casualness with which I talked about wondering if I was gay. Because there were so many people. Part of it wasn't really my fault. Part of it was that so many people asked me if I was gay that I just started to wonder if I was. And there's also the fact that I'm biromantic, so I did experience romantic attraction to a handful of men throughout my life. And I just sort of conflated romantic and sexual attraction like most people do. And I wondered why it was that I wasn't experiencing sexual attraction to those people, but I sort of figured that it would just come later on because that had always been the case for me. The few people that I almost experienced sexual attraction to, it took me starting to get to know them before I started to develop even the tiniest bit of an inkling to. And there's only been one person in my entire life that I have experienced the legitimate sexual attraction to, and that's my current partner. And that's because my partner and I are high school sweethearts, and we've known each other for several years. And for most of the time we've known each other, we weren't super active talking, but we maintained a friendship throughout the entire time that we've known each other. And we did date in high school. And that was when I started to believe that I was straight, because I did experience a sexual attraction to them at that time. And a lot of this stuff is personal, but ultimately for a lot of ace folks to talk about asexuality and for us to explain asexual stuff to non-asexuals, we are going to have to talk personally. And this is one of the reasons why being an asexual advocate and being like a public asexual person kind of sucks. Because for us to explain so many of the concepts, we are going to have to be like, hey, these are my experiences, which means that we're basically going to have to talk about our love lives, which is, not fun. But I'm definitely going to keep doing live streams on Saturday. Live streams on Saturdays are going to be from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. EST. They might be a little bit longer. In some cases, I might make them an hour and a half like today's was, but I probably won't. Some of them probably will be like more strictly on topic, and then other ones won't be, because talking off topic is fun. Having an actual conversation with folks is really important. And I think it's really cool that YouTube lets us do this. I like to take advantage of it, and I like to have genuine conversations with people. Unfortunately, that does mean keeping like a strict time limit is kind of tough. But it be like that sometimes. Sometimes you just got to do it to them. And I know a lot of other asexual folks who have thought about being public and open about asexuality, and who are open and public about asexuality experience the thing that I just talked about. This is a concept that I'm going to be talking about more in some of my videos, wherein I'm just like, hey, it kind of sucks that I have to lay my life out on the line for people who aren't ace to be able to relate, or for them to be able to understand these concepts. And it also kind of sucks that I have to do the emotional labor of explaining and re-explaining lots of really basic concepts that apply to a whole bunch of people. But it's also important work, and it can be fun work. Like this is some of the most fun I'm going to be having this entire weekend, y'all, which is part of the reason why I got like off topic so easily. And I think that in some cases, I probably will have other people be here on Saturdays. Not here like in the comments, but here like doing a panel with me. I think I'm going to keep Saturdays for asexuality because being like having like a set day for asexuality lets me think and lets me like plan out my conversations. Today I have like notes and stuff that I'm going to be sharing in a couple of hours, tomorrow at the very latest, because I'm working on other stuff. If y'all knew just how many projects I had going on at any one time, y'all would think I'm a crazy person, which is fair because I'm not mentally healthy. So I talked about that in the last live stream, and that was actually kind of fun. I'm gonna be talking about that at a future point. Oh, Triatal, you'd be down for a panel? That's tight. I'm gonna keep that in mind because I am gonna be interviewing you. I know I DM'd you a couple days ago, and then I just haven't responded. Sorry, these last few days have been kind of crazy. But now it's been almost an hour and a half, which means lots of folks aren't going to watch this whole thing, which is fine. I think it's cool that folks don't watch the whole thing. I just hope that people have fun, and I hope that people appreciated the time that we were together here, because I know I did. Talking with y'all, talking with my audience, and engaging my audience is super tight. And I'm going to let you go, but I hope y'all know that I think y'all are great. Also, I'm totally there with you, Sassy, because I love talking during movies. I love it so much that I'm really appreciative of Netflix, because I think that talking during movies is so fun and it annoys people. I also like saying spoilers for like little things, which annoys people. I don't do that on social media because that is terrible, but I think it's fun to like not spoil big things for like little things. So yeah, apparently I'm a bad person to watch movies with, but I'm going to let y'all go. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super happy that we had this chance to have this talk. And I really appreciate that. That was the one message that was held for review that really should have been, but because I know who it's from, I'm cool with it. But that message aided. That message was right there. So I am going to let you guys go. In the future, I am going to try to have more serious like live streams, and I probably will do after parties. I'm not going to do an after party this week. I will be doing an after party next week. If you guys are curious about that sort of thing, let me know and I'll chat with you about it, because I probably will create like a Twitter group. I'm a part of some Twitter groups, like I'm a part of Wonder Lady's Twitter group, which is a great place, wherein Wonder Lady and I share the links to our after parties, but I kind of want to make my own, especially for asexual stuff, so that way people who are like in the chat can like come in and join with me, and we can have a conversation. They can talk about their experiences. It's really important to platform asexual folks, which is part of the reason why it is that I'm doing my interviews. And if you are interested in being interviewed, I can do any day of the week except for Wednesdays, which is when I'm with Wonder Lady. So send me a DM on Twitter and be like, hey, I want to be interviewed, because if you do that, that's great. And I want to interview asexual folks. I want to interview aromantic folks. I want to interview gray folks, and I want to interview demi folks. I am also going to be doing interviews with atheists again. I did that in the past. But I usually have like really specific stuff for that. Like I liked having conversations with other Hispanic atheists because there are so few of us, especially on Twitter and on YouTube. But if you are someone who's interested in being interviewed in any capacity and you want to set it up and you want to come on my channel, you want to chat, let me know, because I'm probably going to start to do just generic interviews just for fun. And I just really like chatting with people, obviously. I really like being like social, as long as I can like control some of the circumstances of it. So, hey, Smitty, send me a DM. I would be down to have that conversation. That would be cool. I did not know that about you. That's neat. Folks, if folks do send me DMs, I do my best to respond. Oh, that sucks. You can do your cell phone. If you want to send me a DM on Twitter, we can chat about that. I chat with a wide range of folks, there's a very diverse community here. I want to highlight that diversity. I want to have conversations with people from all over. So let me know, get in touch. Let's have chats. Peace out, friends. Sorry if you just arrived. It's the end of the stream. But you can go back and you can watch it because the length of this one's probably going to take 15 minutes to like do the full uploading thing. Bye, friends.